Hello, welcome to Fun Fantasy FPL. My name is Harry White, and I've been playing FPL for about 7 or 8 years. Best ever finish was 7k in the world, which I will hold until my dying breath. But love the game, and yeah, just love being nerding out on all things FPL. Stephen?
My name's Stephen Berry. I've been playing fantasy for I think about 5 years. My top finish isn't as good as Barry's. It's the top 300,000. But as you'll see in this podcast, Barry's more of a boring player about stats, about maths. I'm more the Marco Bielsa of fantasy, shall we say. So I play the game in the right way. I take wild swings every week. A lot of them don't come off, but one day they will, and it will see me to glory, hopefully, this season.
And there you have it, listeners, a glimpse into the level of shit chat that Stephen Berry will be bringing to the table, but lovingly so. But yeah, look, this is just a quick intro into us. We're going to try and do the podcast once a week, only for about 30 minutes or so, sort of long enough for your commute into work, and just to listen to some nonsense. And two mates just chatting about football, which I'm sure much we do down the pub, in work, you know, wherever you are, really, basically. But the concept is simple. There are a million podcasts about data analytics, XG, XA. I'm a little bit interested in that, but realistically, the reason why we play the game is because it's fun. And it's a bit of madness sometimes when John Lundstrom scores 2 goals in the opening days of the season as a 4.0 defender. Those are the moments you remember. You don't remember calculating the XG to perfection. So
Yeah,
really,
very well said, Barry.
but yes, and me and Stephen, we often debate our views on fantasy football and football more generally. But you know, generally, but in short, that's how we want to play the game. Just have a bit of fun, some rogue shouts, and to kind of kick it all off a little bit, we are both starting with completely different teams. Stephen has volunteered to go the roger, as is his nature. So, Stephen, do you want to talk us through a couple of your shouts for your opening day?
I just want to reinforce that. Yeah, this if you're looking for an analytical FPL podcast, this is not the place for you. There are plenty of those out there. We're not looking to get into that market in any capacity, really. I think the aim is to, as Barry says, have some fun. We'll be drinking for every podcast. We're drinking now, for example, and I think the goal will be, if you're looking for something a bit different, if you're looking for a rogue shout, as Barry mentioned, that 21 points from Lundstrom is what you remember. We'll try to get you some of those along the way, and that's really what you remember versus whether you finish 301 or 501. So either way, I'll go through my team now. As Barry mentioned, and I'm sure he can start criticizing, this is what I've gone for. So my goalkeepers are Fabianski and Sanchez. Before Barry criticizes those decisions, my thinking is I'm hoping Fabianski will get some minutes. He's the cheapest goalkeeper at 4 million. There are lots of other keepers at 4 million. For those who don't know, you want to spend as little money as possible on your goalkeepers. They get the lowest points ever. Brad Friedel is still the record point holder in fantasy since its inception. They just do not score highly. There's never really a good reason to pay for an expensive goalkeeper. You just end up getting 6 points every week if you have Edison, for example. And also a shitter goalkeeper or a goalkeeper at a shitter team. They make lots of saves. They'll throw in 15 points a hero there, and they don't end up too different from the rest of them. So I've gone for a 4 million and a 4.5. 4 million Fabianski, hoping he gets some game time. And then Sanchez at Chelsea. I don't think Chelsea are going to be as bad this season. Who knows? That might change. But I'm sort of hoping that they'll do okay, and therefore he'll get some decent points and some saves along the way.
That's your roguish shout of this podcast so far, that Chelsea won't be that bad.
Well, I mean,
they are in chaos. They're all over the shop.
Well, yeah, but they can't get any worse. Surely. I mean, they have 30 centre backs. Surely there'll be some good defending there.
Yeah. Well, no, good. No, it's good. Well, I mean, for me, in goal, I've gone for Fleckham and Henderson. Henderson of Crystal Palace, obviously, but I'm of the same school of thought as Stephen. I just don't like the idea of spending £6 million on a keeper that's either going to get me 6 points or two. I'm still, going back to the context of the podcast a little bit. I am, still in love with the fact that Sam Johnston once got me 12 points when he was playing at West Brom. However many seasons ago that was. So those sort of heroes of FPL. I think a lot of the 4.5 keepers that you can rotate, and Flecken and Henderson, I think, rotate quite nicely until about game week 13, 14. But then you're probably thinking about a wild card by then.
Yeah, you honestly could call it my goalkeeper shouts proud when you have Flecken, who is unable to make saves and is going to play in a team that is going to not be that great this season, who are probably aiming for 17th.
Okay, cool. We'll see how this pans out, because already we're on the warpath. But I'll go through the defense on my side,
Yeah.
and you can go yours. So this is where we didn't even introduce this part of us, Stephen. So the other what they call it angle to this podcast is I am a Tottenham fan, and Stephen is an Arsenal fan. So we have great conversation, shall we say, particularly after a few beers, over our love of our clubs as well. So my Spurs bias has kicked in at the back, and I've got Destiny in Doggy because I've destined to own him. But as 5 million wing back, great returns last season, just really exciting player. Wing backs, as a FPL friend of mine would say, are just midfielders in disguise. And when they're that cheap, you can't not look past them. Then I've got Mikolenko, very popular choice to alternate with Fulham defenders. And then I've gone for Nico Williams, a bit of an off the wall shout there with Nottingham Forest, but they've got good opening fixtures. And then on the bench currently is Robinson and Bako, who is playing behind Estupiñán, but Estupiñán is injured until mid-September. So I'm pretty solid with that. What about your defence then, Stephen? What have we got for?
Yeah, I don't actually mind your defence that much. I think a lot of that makes sense. I mean, so back to what Barry said earlier, we've gone for completely different 11s. I magnanimously let him have Haaland, which means that but if you are considering not having Haaland, it's just more fun that way, because you get to have a bit of a broader team. You hide behind the sofa every week, and it's just entertaining when people triple captain Haaland and you just avoid that bullet. It's gonna be great. But because I've saved that money, I'm going for what's known as a big at the back strategy. It's a very common term. It's worked before historically. For example, when Trent and Robertson in the title-winning season for Liverpool, they were the most expensive defenders in the game, but they just racked up points week after week. So I've deployed a lot of my Haaland money at the back. So I've gone for, again, my bias here, I've gone for Ben White and Saliba. Why those two from Arsenal? Ben White has been a bit of a thorn in the side for FPL people. Everyone said last season he was too expensive. He's gone up in price again, but I think he'll justify that. The only concern I have with him is, with Timber coming back, is he guaranteed to play? Maybe not. So he might be one who's a bit of a rotation risk, but either way, he should be the first choice right back for most of the season. That's also why I've gone for Saliba as well. The Saliba will never be dropped by Arteta. The back three for Arsenal are all a rotation risk, but Saliba will basically play every week, even with the broken leg. I couldn't help myself, but I've also gone for Pedro Porro as well. He's an attacking fullback. I think the one thing to sort of Barry's point around attacking players, there are sort of two options really. You either go for your people who play for Sean Dyche, or you people who play for Ange Postecoglou. I think overall you want defenders who score. For those who don't know, you get 7 points. Is it for a goal scored by defender, or is it 6? It's 6, isn't it? Sorry.
No, I think it's still 4, but you get obviously the bonus points are higher just because they are. Well, defenders shouldn't be scoring, right?
No, defenders get 6 points for a goal, midfielders 5, and strikers 4.
Maybe you're right. I don't know. But the point still stands. Of course, defenders that score, that they're gold dust, really.
Yeah, essentially it's a clean sheet. If a defender scores, you've got a clean sheet and more. So even though Spurs can't defend to save their life, Ange Postecoglou doesn't know anything about defence. He's still worth having. My other defence is Maatsen for Aston Villa. He looked really good in the Bundesliga last season. It's unbelievable that Chelsea let him go, really, just to sign a 12-year-old from Brazil. But anyway, you'll have to ask Bowley about that one. And then my other one is Castagne. He might actually drop out of my team for. Well, I was going to go for Anthony Robinson. I think his actual he's a better shot, but as Barry and I determined to have different teams, I've gone for Castagne. I'm pretty sure he's the other fullback. And yeah,
Mm,
Fulham have a decent start, made some decent signings, and should do okay this season. He won't be in my team all season, but he's fine for the first few weeks.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a solid back line, really. I think the big at the back is kind of Marmite, I think. I'm surprised you haven't gone for Trent, to be honest. If you had that option and you had that extra cash there, because I've got this real nag inside of me that Trent's going to do quite well. But knowing
Well,
you, knowing you, if you got Trent in, you'd captain him week one. So I'm quite happy you don't, to be honest.
well, just on Trent. I mean, I'll sort of get to some of my team later. I don't know how good Liverpool are going to be this season.
Yeah, true.
Arnie,
They haven't signed a single person. Like it's only team in the top divisions in Europe who haven't signed anyone. It's
right, and
mental. At time of recording,
Klopp,
which is what, the 12th of August.
right, and I think Klopp was really keeping that team together. If you go through
Yeah,
it, it's an
agreed.
aging team. I think he got a lot out of them. Arnie Slot, he just screams Ten Hag 2.0, doesn't he? So I just don't see him slash Liverpool performing very well this season. So I think the funds can be deployed elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, yeah. I think it's wise to kind of take a step back from Liverpool, but I think if they go off, they've got some really good players. I mean, there's a lot of talk about Dominic Szoboszlai, who's being encouraged to play a much more attacking role. I think he's 6 or 6.5 mil on FPL. I think he'd be killer asset if he hits the ground running. But obviously, talking about midfielders, the only midfielder that I was the first on my team sheet just because of the fixture, to be honest. Fixtures over form, there is no such thing as form, as some people would say, is Mohamed Salah. I mean, what a player. I know he's old, or he's getting older, but he's still, Ipswich at home, Ipswich away, sorry, first game is unbelievable. And then I've gone for Nkunku.
And Cuckoo.
I can never say his name. Sorry for the Chelsea contingent, but I think he's just been phenomenal. He was playing at 20% of his capacity last season because he was injured, but I think he's going to tear it up as a 6.5 midfielder. We've got quite a lot of choices in that price bracket, and I think he's quite clearly the best. He's an OOP, he's out of position. He should be playing against a striker. And yeah, he's just. I think he's going to do really well. Although Man City at home is a bit of a difficult fixture. Man City do leak goals. I think he can nick something the first game, and then he's got some good fixtures. After that, I've got Saka, your boy, who is still most consistent. I think the choice between Saka, Foden, and Cole Palmer is a really interesting one. Also, one to note, they're all English, which I think is an unusual trend within the Premier League. They're all really good players, and I think it's much for much who you choose. I just think that Nkunku can cover Palmer more than any other Arsenal player can cover Saka. And then I've gone for Rodgers at Morgan Rodgers at Aston Villa, 5 million, out of position, scored 3 goals in pre-season. Just looks good. And then one of your favourite players to wail on, I think, probably, Stephen, is Adam Lallana. Has gone as my bench midfielder, 5 million, signed for Southampton. There's rumour of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain going to Southampton and Jose Font as well, I saw somewhere recently.
What?
So yeah, they're getting the band back together, which is mental. All they need is, I can't remember the name of the Italian forwards they had at that same time.
You're not thinking of Ricky Lambert, who's English.
No. It's Pele. Is it Pele?
Pele.
Yeah, Graziano Pele, who I watched him at the Lane once when they played Tottenham, and he tore us a new one. We won 3-2, but he scored 2 amazing goals. So that's my midfield. Stephen, what is your midfield saying so far?
But before I go into your midfield, I'm just going to go through why your entire midfield is wrong, apart from, of course, Starboy Saka. So
course.
The fact that your argument for bringing in Lallana is that Southampton are going to bring back a Portuguese defender who was kept out of the Portuguese team by an even older man in Pepe is just, quite frankly, remarkable. The biggest one I've got to call out is Salah. I think Salah is done. I think last season was sort of his swan song. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near as good without Klopp, and that money, quite frankly, is a trap. Who would your other?
So Rogers and Nkunku.
Okay,
I'm going to get his name right eventually. Probably at the end of the season.
It's an interesting shout. Nkunku, it's just that just screams Barry listening to the podcast and just following the pack there. Nothing interesting about that. He's got Man City first. He'll play 2 minutes and break his leg and be out for the season. You're going to burn a transfer before a ball is even kicked. So, yeah, that's it's all in all a pretty bad midfield.
Can I just point out to listeners, right? Okay, there's two things I want to make. Firstly, when Stephen says that I criticise his decision making, I do not. I just envy it. I do not have the cojones to make decisions and the shouts that he's made. I think we're going to snip so much of what you just said there and use it to burn it later. The second thing I mentioned is, if anyone thinks this is just like a caricature that Stephen's putting on, this is not. This is how he talks in the pub every day. I remember many years ago him ranting about Riyad Mahrez, saying he was the worst player in the world and he's just a pub team player, and then he scores a goal. The second thing to mention is, if you're listening to this and thinking that Stephen is like putting this on like a caricature, like a show, this is absolutely him to a T. This is how he talks in the pub every week. This is how he speaks to our friends and gives all his fruitful opinions, I think it's fair to say. Insights, yes. Insights into a mind that clearly is unhinged. But I remember once he was ranting about Riyad Mahrez, and then Riyad Mahrez scored a beautiful goal for Leicester. But he's got some good opinions. And it's, to a certain extent, this is a podcast where I think he's going to come alive. And really express some of his views across the internet, which I think need to be shared around the world. So you've gone in on my midfield. Let's see what you've gone for to start off the season.
Yeah, so as much as I don't think Liverpool are going to do well this season, you just can't ignore Ipswich away. Ipswich are going to be so bad this season. I don't think they're going to be as bad as Sheffield United. I think they're going to be somewhere in between a Sheffield United and a Burnley, maybe even as good as a Luton. But either way, if they finish 19th, I think they've had a hell of a season. You just can't ignore that opening fixture. So that's what I've gone for. Diogo Jota, I think he's going to start. He seems to have started a few games in pre-season.
Yeah, I think that's another problem. He scored a couple against Sevilla last night.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the problem with Liverpool. Other than Salah, they've got Gapka, they've got Luis Diaz, they've got Darwin Núñez, who we'll get to later. Picking that front three, who's the number 9 and who's the left wing is a bit tricky. I've gone for Jota. I think he's going to start that game. Again, he's not somebody who's probably going to be in my team for that long unless he hits a purple patch, but you just can't ignore.
How much is Jota on FPL?
He is 7.5 million. So he's not cheap. He's 1 million.
But that's about a Gordon price, right? So it's quite an easy transfer across if it does go pear shaped.
Well, not if you already have Gordon as well. I've got Gordon in my team. Again, Southampton at home, impossible to ignore. He didn't, obviously, you could argue famously didn't get enough game time at the Euros, but that's by the by. So I think he will start. I think their front three will be Isaac, Gordon. I think the other flank is up for grabs. Harvey Barnes, maybe.
Yeah,
he could be one.
Jacob Murphy, something like that.
Jacob Murphy. I mean, I'm guessing they're both. I don't know their prices on the top of my head, but I think they're both pretty cheap. Eddie Howe.
I think Barnes is probably more likely to.
Right, and Eddie Howe loves a shit player. If you're a shit player and you want to improve your career, you go to Eddie Howe. If you're a good young talent and you want to ruin your career, you can go to Chelsea. These are some of the paths open to you. So
the gospel according to Berry, isn't it? Really?
Exactly. So Barnes, Almiron, I don't think is going to. I think Almiron, he looked pretty tired at the end of last season. Also, they've got, again, shit players. Newcastle have got loads of them. Isaac Hayden being like another one. At some point, it wouldn't surprise me if one of those shit Newcastle players starts because of injuries and goes on a bit of a run. But who that's going to be, I just don't know. So I'm going to hold off for now. I've then gone for Palmer.
Good shout.
Palmer's a bit. Look, I think it's a bit of an interesting one. He was scoring goals in a awful team. He could be the new Bruno Fernandes, basically. Doesn't matter how bad the team is around him, he still got goals and assists. He's 10.5 million, so he's not cheap. I think it's very difficult to get him. You're the big boys. If you have Salah, Haaland, and him, I don't know where you're going to be losing money in other areas. I think you have two at best. But me and Bush going for one allows me to beef up in other areas, which I'll get to later. I've gone for Oscar Bob at Man City as my 5 million.
You listened to me. You listened to me. I was talking about it at the pub the other night. He's absolutely going to start, and he's going to have a banging season. 5 million OOP. Alvarez isn't there. It's happening. It's honestly happening.
Well, apparently the Alvarez transfer is on the rocks for some reason, and the Gallagher one actually, Sophistico. So, if Alvarez goes, I think Bob could become a must-have if he starts. Another famous thing in fantasy is Pep Roulette. He will play somebody, they'll score 10 goals, and then he'll drop them for no reason. So, it's always a risk with him. I'm also going for Phil.
I was going to say, and you're just about to mention Phil Foden. I think Phil Foden's minutes is going to be really hampered this season. I just have a feeling he's going to be knackered after the Euros, and Pep will want to rest him. So I'm worried about it. And also, just quickly on the Julian Alvarez, we'll kick it off from there. Julian Alvarez, I've just seen Man City have tweeted, we can confirm Julian Alvarez has joined Atletico Madrid on a permanent deal.
There you go.
And Romano has said 75 million euros plus 20 million add-ons. And Man City have also sent 14 million pounds to River Plate because it's a pass-on fee, I suppose.
Wow.
So,
they've gotten their charges down to 110 with that transfer alone. Fair play to them.
There is the sound of a bitter Arsenal fan.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, this is the other thing. This could be, it's Pep's last year of his contract. He'll be desperate to go out on a high. Look, I think we all probably know that the Premier League will cave. They'll give Man City some sort of slap on the wrist by the end of it. The UK government is actually something that is going ahead anyway with the regulator, and the whole point of charging Man City was to say, oh look, we don't need the regulator, so I imagine actually Man City, as they have done, will get away with their cheating. But regardless, I think Pep's going to want to. I can't see Pep there at the end of the season. I think he'll have Jay from in between is that he'll consider that he's completed it, mate. Retire for a bit and then go somewhere else after this. So he'll, even with, and also 5 Premier Leagues in a row they're going for now, a record that could stand for, God knows how long. So there's definitely, if you think Man City won't be motivated this season, that's very much mistaken. So ignore Man City assets at your peril.
So you've gone for Oscar Bob and Phil Foden.
Phil Foden. Phil Foden's currently on my bench, so I don't think he starts against Chelsea, but he's there to be locked in for now.
Cool. And your strikers. Talk us through that. So
okay.
No Isaac, because everyone's got Isaac. Where have you gone?
And I've very much gone. I had to go rogue, and so I've gone for the man who can't hit a barn door, but I've gone for him, and he's also my captain for the first game, and that is Darwin Núñez.
Darwin Núñez.
For a bit of context, I also have a bet with my friend that he won't score more than 10 goals throughout his entire Liverpool career. Not this season. That his entire Liverpool career. Nice. So as you can see, I'm a big fan of him, but sometimes it just calls to you, and this could be it. No one's gone for him. I'll see what his percentage ownership is. He's 6.8% owned. If he gets a goal or two, everyone will pile into him. So another thing to know, if you're unaware for FPL, is form is more important than quality. Usually, players will go on a run, they'll hit a bit of a purple patch, score 5, 6, 7 goals. I think one of the keys to this is not be emotional. If your player has, a Miguel Almiron went on that run, once he went off the ball, he was never getting back on it. Get rid of him. So also, if Núñez does get a brace or something, everyone will transfer him, and he's very affordable. There are quite a lot of premium strikers that people will be holding on to anyway. So his price will go up, and then once he starts missing, as he always likes to do, or hitting the woodwork, I can sell him for profit later on. But again, I really can't put into words how little I think of Ipswich away for the first game.
Let me just ask you a question about your bet against Liverpool. I have other questions and comments to make, but you're saying that he won't score more than 10 goals for Liverpool at all before you made that bet and after, or is it since?
Oh, sorry. Actually, I think it was 20 in the end. So it was 20, not 10.
Okay, cool. Because I just looked it up and he scored 20 goals.
Has he? Oh, well,
65 appearances.
Has he?
Yeah. I just wikied it.
How many League Cup goals has he got? I think it's Premier League goals.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's Premier League.
Premier League goals. You might be saved there, but that's funny. But no, look, I mean, I think Darwin Núñez is an excellent shout because if he goes off, there are going to be people moving from Watkins and Isaac and Tony if they've started with Tony. I mean, it's a perfect transfer across, and so again, this is another sort of corner to the podcast. As Stephen's just said there, if form happens, it's the most important thing in FPL. I don't agree.
Oh wow!
I think fixtures are more important than form. And famously, oh damn it, I was listening to his podcast. Who got the assist? Shout out to those guys. And one of the commentators on there was saying there is no such thing as form. He said he went to a party the first time that FPL met up, which is a group of FPL people that go and meet up in a bar in London somewhere and watch the first couple of games. And he just got drunk and went around saying there is no such thing as form. And I mean, I'm not of that opinion. Like, you definitely should follow form, and where I agree with you, Stephen, like, you don't be emotional about it. If you brought in a Darwin Núñez or a Diego Jota or Foden and they're just not doing anything, do not waste time with it. If it's the right transfer, it's the right transfer. That's the most important thing. But I think fixtures, I will always follow fixtures over form. Whenever I build my teams, I start from the back, I build my defence, I make sure I can rotate my defenders and then switch them if I need to. And then the attacking players, the midfielders and the attackers, I go for fixtures. I go for fixtures, not form. So another competing part of this podcast is that you'll be knee-jerking in some Ipswich defender. Is Ben Johnson, who's moved from West Ham to Ipswich on a permanent deal. He's definitely going to play. So, but but that was my comments about what you just said there. So yeah, let's go on.
Maybe form and fixtures are the same thing. If you're playing shit teams every week, you're going to score every week. So, but again, I'm not the sort of man who's going to go through and analyze the stats and go, this is not Moneyball. This is not about who did he score against, when did they score. So
no, what you're going to do is you're going to captain Oscar Bob second game of the season where Man City play Ipswich at home. That's what you're going to do.
Well,
I can't wait for it.
To be fair, last season, I mean, again, I don't have the stats. There are much cleverer people out there than me. But if you just if you had someone who played Sheffield United and captained that person, you'd have done pretty well.
Yeah, who was it? Was that in the game week 29 when there was only like 5 teams playing and you free hit and you captained
the Burnley guy,
Burnley striker or midfielder, and he scored 2 goals against Fulham. Was it? I can't remember who he played.
No, I think he did play Sheffield United. Burnley was one of the one. It was the only game Burnley won last season. So
yeah. But no. So who else have you got in your front line then?
I've got Solanke actually.
Solanke.
I've got 2 Spurs players and 2 Arsenal players there, so I'll hopefully have to adjust that balance. But Solanke, to be fair, that is just a perfect signing.
How much
Spurs, he's a goal poacher. They create loads of chances. Surely he's going to bang them in. Will he start the first game given when he's transferred? Maybe not. But if he does, they're playing Leicester, who again are going to be god awful this season. They've got the same defense that got them relegated. So, and they were bad then. I don't think they're much better now. Again, the only risk there is, does he start that game? But I think Solanke in general is going to get, if he can stay fit, we'll get loads of goals this season.
It's also worth mentioning about Leicester. They are under some serious pressures with FFP.
Are they going to get top 15 points already?
No. So, well, I mean, I was listening to Gary Lineker on The Rest is Football. Again, great podcast. Everyone should listen to it. It's amazing. Amazingly funny. He is worried about that. I don't think it'll be that harsh because look, when the Premier League docked Everton points, and we can do a whole separate podcast about what this means and all this sort of thing. I've got lots of views. I know that those guys in the Premier League towers were hoping that Everton didn't get relegated. Because imagine if they got relegated by 1 point, right? Or even they were on the same points and then got relegated by goal difference. I mean, that would be humongous. They gave Everton, what was it, 8 points overall eventually, or 10 points? And the thing is that the worst thing about that is not even the fact it got them close to being relegated. It was the fact that if that didn't happen, they would have been ninth or eighth.
Yeah.
They. I mean, Sean Dichatino, he does a number, and it was a real crying shame. But I know they were hoping it wouldn't get relegated, because if they managed to get a team relegated by docking in points, I think that would be threatening to the entire order of Premier League. But putting Man City aside, who I don't think they'll ever go through properly because they're worried about the Super League and other things. I mean, you mentioned the British government. The British government has just taken a check for £10 billion from the owners of Man City, right? So to redevelop certain areas of Manchester and all these sorts of things. What I was listening, I mean, they're not going to go for them in the same way. This regulator, like,
it's an independent football regulator, Barry. Independent.
Well, you say independent, but they're trying to buy the Telegraph, the Daily Telegraph. The same group is trying to buy the Daily Telegraph. I mean, it's mental. But again, we could do a whole separate podcast on those things. But I think, going back to what you're saying, Leicester will be poor, but I think they've got enough to survive. I'm more worried about Notts Forest, to be honest, next season. We'll get into that a bit later, but I'm more worried about that part. But Solanke, how much is he on fantasy football?
He's 7.5 million as well. So.
Okay, nice. Good price point to move him on or to upgrade later.
Yeah, you can actually argue.
I think it's a great show.
Quite cheap. I can't remember how many goals he got last season, but he got
19.
9. So he's. I mean, that is unbelievably cheap for a 19-goal striker. Not a bad team, but still, that's a good return.
Yeah, and now he's in a team that are going to create loads of chances.
Yeah.
I think he will start week 1. I think he will.
Okay.
And I think with Son, Maddison, Brendan Johnson or Kulusevski playing, I mean, this Swedish kid we've just signed, who's basically a cam, Bergville, something like that. He scored in pre-season against Bayern Munich. Like, he looks mustard. As
much as it pains me to say it, for me, this has been the signing of the season so far. I mean, on paper, as I said, he just seems so perfect. Again, a goal poacher in the team that creates loads of chances. It seems like a match made in heaven. Of course, obviously, you've got to factor in the Spurs factor. It will go horribly wrong within seconds. If that team was at any other club and he had signed for any other club with his exact same players, he'd be absolutely fine and get more goals than Haaland.
Apart from Chelsea,
apart from Chelsea, of course.
Of course. The Chelsea tax. Okay, mental. Well, it's nice. I was just about to say, it's nice when Stephen comments positively on Tottenham, but then usually that involves some form of disaster coming later, but then he explained that. So that's fine. Cool. And then your third striker. Who've gone you?
My third striker is Ollie Watkins. He's a bit of a...
9 million.
I don't know. I can't work out Aston Villa this season. I think they'll probably start well. They've made good signings. They've signed Maatsen. They sold Diaby. They've sold, but they sold
Diaby. Yeah, that was a weird transfer because I thought he was really good last season. Where is he gone? Where is he? I'm going to look at it.
I think he went to Bayern or something. I think they got big money for him.
I think he went to Bayern as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so they got big money for him, but that does bring Bailey back into the equation potentially for another day.
No, he didn't. He went to Al Ittihad.
God.
He's gone to the Saudi Pro League.
What a waste. He's not old, is he, Diaby?
Wow. He's 25.
What a waste of a talent. Well, okay, good for him. He wants the money. Fair play, I suppose. But, that is a real shame. Anyway, but I don't know how much Bailey is, but that brings him back into contention. But it also means
6.5 for Bailey, 6.5.
Yeah, but that means your Rodgers shout. Rodgers doesn't look like a good player. Again, Villa, I think that. Well, this is the thing. Newcastle, obviously, if you compare it to like a Newcastle, they've got a very good starting 11, but a thin squad. It doesn't take many injuries for the wheels to come off, especially when they're playing midweek as well. But they've got a fully fit team currently. Relatively easy start. Ollie Watkins is a great striker, so will he be in my team all season? Maybe not, but I think to start off with, he's a good shout.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Aston Villa made some really, really good signings. Matheson is my. I think he's going to be mustard. He was absolutely ridiculous for Dortmund, wasn't he? He was playing for.
That's why he's in my team.
Yeah. So that's a good shout there. So yeah, so we got and for week one, what are you playing? Are you playing 3-4-3?
So White and Saliba and Porro at the back. Fabianski in goal, just hoping that he starts, but Sanchez will probably get subbed on. Jota, Palmer, Gordon, Oscar Bob, Darwin Nunez, Dominic Solanke, and Ollie Watkins, and that's my 3-4-3.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, I've gone the same. I'll do my strikers first, but I've gone for the same formation. But my strikers are a pretty template, to be honest. But the front three that I've gone for is Muniz at Fulham. I mean, 4.5 last season, 6 million this season. I expected a higher price rise. I think he's class. He's got Man United away first game, but then he's got Leicester, Ipswich the next two, and then West Ham. So decent fixtures. Man United, they love to concede a goal early doors. So and he just seems like just quite a good. Well, he looks like a fun player to own. Also, I watched a recent interview with him. He's a very odd bloke. So he has a love for fishing.
Right.
And he did this interview and he said, yeah, what it would be is in my order be God, football and fishing. And then someone has got a flag at Fulham with a Brazilian flag with his face on it saying God, football, fishing in that order, which is excellent chat from the Fulham fans that have created. And then I've gone Isaac, again, similar reasons for your shout back. Gordon, Southampton at home. He scored 21 goals last season. I think he's like nearly 60% owned. Yeah, 56.2% owned.
What's Muniz actually?
Muniz is ownership 7.6. That's lower than I thought.
Wow.
But I wonder whether there's still teams that are formulating. And then I've gone for
I guess because his first fixture is if the reason why we've gone Fulham heavy, both of us, is after Man U they have a very, very easy run.
Yeah, good fixtures,
for them. So maybe people are waiting until after game week 1 to go for him.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted Smith Rowe. I think you were thinking about him for a bit. The other thing to mention is this team could change between now and Friday, the deadline. But I think the defenders I'm broadly set on. The only thing I might do is downgrade in Doggy to another 4.5. Maybe Conser. Conser's in my thoughts. And then that gives me an extra 0.5 to take Lallana to a 5.5 midfielder. As much as I love Adam Lallana just because I think he's actually quite a funny bloke. He's not going to get crazy minutes and he's not going to be the best. But I was going to rotate him with Muniz, to be honest, and I probably will start Muniz most games. Anyway, so yeah, look, that's the predictions in terms of our team so far. Obviously, that will change. We'll do a final team reveal.
Every week we will be doing this. We'll keep you up posted on our rankings. We'll be doing a critical assessment of each other's teams, but not our own. Talk about where they were stupid, etc. And I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, no. Thanks for listening. And yeah, I hope it gives you a bit of fun for your morning, evening commutes. And remember, it's a game. It's all about having fun. So, ciao for now. That's it. Cut.